I'm Amy.
And I'm Chris,
Best friends of 30 years.
and we believe A Course in Miracles is the most enlightening,
Albeit slightly difficult,
personal development course we've come across.
we've walked many miles
In several countries,
analyzing and applying the course
we're bringing you our insights,
and challenges
our loves and fears.
as we apply this course to our daily lives
We love its non-denominational and all-inclusive nature,
and want to share how you too can apply these higher principles in a practical
and hopefully more easeful way.
grab a tea
Or a glass of wine,
and settle in for some laughs and truths as we share real life tribulations.
and how we shift them into miracles. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to One Simple Truth. It's Chris.
And Amy,
And we're just laughing about our summer sessions here. I am
summer
coming
sessions.
and you said some are good, some are bad. Um, I'm coming to you live for those of you watching on YouTube from my closet. So it's a little more quiet with a house full of kids and lawnmowers and things going on in the background. So everyone gets a view of my clothes here and my summer don't care sweatshirt and
Don't care.
summer don't care. Anyway, we were just talking. We had a couple weeks off there, or 1 week off, I guess, 2 weeks in between recording, but we were just talking about what we wanted to share today. And we've been reading, well, you had read this book before, and I just discovered it. So and then you re-listened to it. It's a book called The Disappearance of the Universe. And I was just trying to get the author is Gary R. Renard. And oh my goodness, this book has been so good. And I didn't even realize it kept popping up. And it was at a time where I was really sort of like in a lower energy, but I kept like asking for a shift in perspective and like some help. And this book kept popping up in my Audible, which I love that. And I didn't even realize that it leads to A Course in Miracles, which is so funny.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't know. I was just like, oh, this looks interesting. And then, you can like listen to the little um like summary of it or like a little bit of the introduction. And I'm like, oh, this sounds really good. And yeah, I didn't even realize. And so I guess just to explain the book a little bit, it's, like A Course in Miracles, they say is channeled from Jesus, from JC, through a psychologist. Well, this one is channeled. Well, I guess it's not channeled, but he was seeing these ascended masters, right? They kept kind of appearing. And so he started taking notes and he was recording and stuff. So a similar kind of thing where, a higher power is sort of showing up and doing the teaching. But it's really cool because it talks about the different or they talk about the different religions and what are the truths and what aren't the truths of different ones. And then it kind of just ultimately leads to A Course in Miracles. So I've just been loving this, not a different take because it's saying the same things as A Course in Miracles, but just this different like approach to it. And because I've been listening to the, course for so long that it just kind of like explains things a little bit more like that are in the world and sort of how to approach things. So anyway, it just came at the perfect time and you were like, yeah, I'm gonna re-listen. And
Yeah, it was great
yeah,
to re-listen. I think I listened to it probably like a long time ago, like maybe 15 years ago, or probably read it at that time. But
which is
yeah,
crazy because I had never even heard of it. And you like read it so long ago. So it's been around for a while.
yeah, and I think it's well, I remembered, I know it's one of those resources that is one of the more popular resources around A Course in Miracles. And that's probably why I ended up reading it a long time ago when I was like trying to get my hands on anything I could around A Course in Miracles and any kind of different, like you said, different explanations of it, or different like conversations around the principles. And in listening to it again, I guess I forgot that he started getting this information from these ascended masters before he had read or even knew about A Course in Miracles. And they were the ones who were like, go and get the book. And,
Right. That's so
and
true.
so he went and read it. He's like, I read it, and I don't know how long. It was fast. He read it really quickly, compared to the majority of people, I think. And his like understanding of it is great. These two ascended masters are so great, the way that they explain or re-explain everything in conjunction with the course materials. And then the author Gary, he like re-explains it or re-summarizes it. It's just a really enjoyable way to hear it in a different kind of way, like with the conversation between the three of them. And I think a few things really, like you and I chatted about how we really appreciated some of the ways that they we often grapple with the fact that there's this like higher level perspective or a higher level knowing, or like there's just this truth that we're not these bodies, we are not this world, the world is really an illusion. And so there's that part of this concept or this truth around A Course, but yet we all live in this illusion, or we believe we're living in this illusion. And therefore, like, how do you do both? How do you kind of live in the illusion in the meantime while you're still trying to achieve this more, whole peace of mind, and this more like dedicated peace of mind to the truth, which is like none of this really matters. So I love how they bridge that. Like you and I chatted about how we love how they're like, they explain like none of this really matters, but we'll tell you a little bit about what's going on in your world that,
And
either
they're really funny.
historically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really funny. And he'll be like, well, and I like the Audible because it's different voices for like each of the Ascended Masters and him, and then his
Yeah.
voice is him. But he's like, and then I was all ready to have a couple beers, and they showed up again. It's like, and what was the other one I got? I rented a racy adult only VHS, and here they are again. And
And
he's
here
like,
they are.
guess you already knew I was gonna watch
I
that
guess you
tonight.
already knew. And they're like, hey, what are you watching there, Gary?
Yeah,
And that's really funny. Yeah.
and then they joke around with him and stuff, and yeah, so it's really funny. And yeah, it's kind of like the course is the course, and it can be so wordy, and then this is more like a lighter take on the whole thing, and kind of gives you like it's that higher level, explanation of it, but then how to sort of be in the world and navigate through. So yeah,
Yeah.
like
It's
exactly what
like
you were
how to
saying.
be in the world and then also ignore the world. Like it's kind of both.
Mhm.
Like they're acknowledging like, yeah,
Totally.
this is what's happening in the world, and ignore the world. It doesn't matter. And so it's kind of cool just to have those like two things juxtaposed frequently.
And I
Um,
loved, I don't know why for me, I'm not totally finished it yet, but one of the things I loved was like them even talking about past lives, because that to me is like kind of a more spiritual concept. But then if this is all a projection, like how does that work? And so that was kind of cool too. They were like, we've been many people, and we've been ascended masters, and we've been this and that, and you have as well, Gary. But then at the end of the day, it's still like the projection, and like if you keep thinking you're separate, then you keep thinking you've been this life or that life, and it just keeps showing up that way. So it was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So it's like it sort of exists but doesn't at the same time, but it just helped like get my mind around even that part of it.
yeah. And I think along what's coming to my mind too is their idea of the script,
Mm,
and how the script is the stuff that happens in the world. there's a script that's written, and it's all the events that happen through history and through our lives. And the script has already come and gone. It's already happened. We've gone through the whole script already. And that is the world. And that we're just almost reliving this, like a rerun of our script.
Like a
But yeah, we do have the power to, like, within the script, it's almost like the ego is on like autopilot and is just going robotically from event to event, or from chapter to chapter, if you will, if it's a script, from chapter to chapter, and we're just going through these motions almost automatically. But we have the power to, in an instant, be present and become aware and become connected. And in that instant, it does change the script, in that we are going to take out of the script the heavy lessons, or the heavy parts that we don't. If we learn a lesson and we're very present, we don't need to keep repeating those lessons anymore, because we've already let it go. So even though it's kind of pre-written and we're going through this script, then we still have the opportunity within it to become more aware and are more like awake. So
yeah, that's true. And you know what? One of the things that was interesting to me too was like even just explaining why the course is written in using Christian terminology. Because I just, and I'm always on here like whenever we say God or the Holy Spirit, I'm like, or whatever you believe in, because I know it's a turnoff for people that have not great experiences with that terminology, right? And I just thought even that was interesting because they say Jesus came through with that wording because to debunk some of the myths in Christianity. I'm like, oh, that makes sense,
and
right?
there's
So
a lot
it just
that,
explains things.
yeah. And that whole section, when they talk about, I guess it's not just in one section of the book, it's throughout the book, but that's very enlightening too, about how they go into what the purpose of religion is, like,
Yeah.
even like you said, debunking these things about what is like God, what is Christianity, what is the things that the establishment that has become this religion these days, and how full of the ego it really is. And so,
Yeah, and what the truth is, and like what Jesus was really trying to do and get
yeah,
across. And then now there's the course that explains it, right?
yeah,
And just, about love and the ego and fear. And yeah, and it was kind of cool too how it was like not everybody's gonna be interested in this or ready for this, but everybody will over time or time, whatever. Right? But I just really, yeah, liked how it just kind of explains it, like the behind the scenes sort of thing of the course.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
And then do you want to chat about, so the other topic that this book brought up, which I felt like I heard it really well,
yeah.
for not the first time, but yeah, for the first time.
Yeah, we had
Because
revelation,
you
few
hear these
revelations here.
things and you catch them and then you let them go and you're like, oh, I forget about that. Anyway,
Totally.
for the first time, I really felt the sentiment that this world and everything that happens within this world is meaningless.
Hmm.
And I was joking with my friends the other day. I'm like, I feel like I really started to latch on to this, the freedom, the liberation that comes from saying this world is meaningless. And I'm like, I think I should make like a bumper sticker, but with like a little fuzzy bunny rabbit on it. So it's like the words, everything
You
is this is all meaningless, but it
so it
sounds so
softens it a little. Yeah. Or
yeah,
like
it
a little
sounds so
jazz
negative, but you're like, but it's all meaningless.
like,
Yay!
woo! We're all free. It's
We're
a
all
good thing.
free.
It's not
And I
me.
like that because it really gets to the crux of what forgiveness really is as
Yeah.
well.
Right.
And we
And
try to
that's where
forgive.
I kind of got with it was like that was my revelation was around like forgiveness and like really how to show up for yourself, but it's like so in alignment with your like what really stood out for you with that this is meaningless. So, yeah, trying to remember that. And what does that mean then? If it is meaningless, how am I showing up? How am I treating myself and not just like trying so hard to like focus on the external, and in the world,
Yeah.
how we've talked about like fixing the problems in the world.
Exactly. Because when you think about the topic of forgiveness, I think it's very natural for anyone who's starting out on this journey to translate the word forgiveness into the fact that I'm a body forgiving another body. I'm
Mhm.
forgiving you something that you've done in my illusion. I think you've done it. I think this has
Right.
happened. So I'm going to be for the sake of being a better person, I'm going to forgive you. And I think that's part of the process is to start to let go via forgiveness and sort of starting to be more like let go of certain things and the importance of certain things in your life. But the truth is that the only reason we feel the need to have to actually forgive another body is if we think it's real, is if the
Right.
incident happened or there is an offense that's occurred. And so then we actually would feel like we have to forgive it versus going way higher level. And you're like, none of this means anything anyway. None of this even exists. This isn't the truth of who I am. I am spirit. I'm love. There's no offense there. There's no fear there. There's no anything. There's no attack. So if we go really higher level, there's no need to even have one body forgive another body because that's not even needed. So forgiveness becomes a whole different term. Forgiveness is
Yeah.
really like none of this even matters. It doesn't even matter. I can just drop it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. It talks about that, how forgiveness is like the Holy Spirit's tool for like bridging the gap of like where we think we're in this projection, but we're not. So how does the Holy Spirit kind of like pull us back to who we really are? And so forgiveness is a tool for like in this illusion, right? Because yeah, at the higher level, you don't need it because we are all love, we are all a spirit. But it's like you said, a way to let go and get closer to, yeah, this doesn't mean anything, remembering it's a projection of our thoughts. We've chosen the ego over love, right? And so how do we get
Yeah.
back to love? And then but yeah, it's like forgiveness in this world is more about like, oh, well, they've done something wrong, so I'll find it in my heart to forgive them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think that's like, okay, that is a starting point because we got to
Yeah.
start somewhere and we do need to forgive. But then like we were saying before we hit record, it also veers into like, okay, if you are buying into these concepts of the course and you're seeing us all as spirit and connected and like trying to keep going back to that and we're all love and we're all light, the ego then can also use this tool of forgiveness to go like, so if something does show up in your everyday and like, okay, maybe you're judging something as right or wrong, but like then I feel like the next place is like, okay, I'm gonna like smooth this over. Like we are all love and light. We are all, so then you tolerate more too, and you don't, this was my revelation, then you're not standing up for yourself all the time because you're like, but we're all connected. We're all love and light. Why is this showing up? What's the lesson? Okay, I need to see that we're all connected. It's okay to do this because we're all connected, but then you tolerate so much more instead of standing up for yourself and what's loving for yourself. So you're still like trying to fix it in the world.
Yes, you're
Right.
right. And
And
it's like
it's
the ego.
masked. Yeah, it's masked as like, oh, but we're all connected. So yeah, I'm just gonna like tolerate this behavior and like it's okay, right? Like just to kind of, just to oversimplify it. But it's like, but that's still in the world of like a body where higher level is like, wait, none of this means anything, like you were saying. And like what's important is being loving to myself. So it
Mhm.
might not be like a smooth over with like a difficult person. I might just pivot and be like, oh, I'm just not going to engage in that anymore. And that's self-love, self-respect. That is like focusing on your own self, which I don't mean it in a selfish way. But the more loving you are with your own self, then you're going to extend that out anyway. Like, I guess it's like it doesn't mean you endure people's BS or any BS of like, of the ego. And I think it can just trip us up a little bit where it's like, but we're all connected, and then you
Mhm.
don't it's but then maybe it's not, you're not being loving with yourself, if that makes sense. That was a bad
Yeah, it makes sense. And
example.
I think it ties into the idea of what religion teaches us, which is be a good person and at the expense of yourself. And
Yes.
I
Yes.
think that that teaching is an ego trick because, as
Yes.
this book says, I really like the way that Gary's book highlights the fact that all of the world that we see on the outside comes from in our mind. And at the little tiny core of our mind, the very beginning point is a self loathing. We all
Mm,
hold on to this guilt that we think we have separated from God originally. And that guilt
yeah.
creates a self loathing. And the
Yeah.
guilt is then expanded out into the whole world. So it's like you were saying, if we try to be good little boys and girls and we follow the 10 commandments and we don't speak too loudly and we don't speak up and we don't talk back and we share our things, if we do all the things outwardly with our bodies that show we're being a good quote unquote person, it doesn't get to the crux of the problem, which is that inner
Mm,
self-loathing. And like
yes.
you were saying,
Good
one
call.
of the ways to catch that inner self-loathing is inner self-love. And so you're
Yes.
going from the beginning, from the get-go. I mean, I would even say that a course goes as far as saying, just acknowledge that you have an inner self loathing. And this is what's happening on the outside. Acknowledge that you have this guilt that comes up in an infinite amount of forms. This self loathing comes up in an infinite amount of forms. And so by acknowledging, like, I have this guilt and this self loathing and this fear that comes from inside of me, then you by trying to patch it up on the outside by
Yes.
like being quiet and not talking back and all those things means nothing. That is meaningless. But if you go to
That's good.
inside and you
Yeah.
go, I'm going to work on the fact that I have this, part of me that I know comes from a fear and a guilt and a self-loathing. I'm going to work on that self-love. Then, like you said, coming from that place of like, I really love myself, then all of the other stuff doesn't have to be like, okay, well, I'm going to follow my 10 commandments. And that's the way I get rid of
I love
the
all your
guilt.
body movements. I'm
Thank
like,
you.
whoever's watching and like, do do
I'm
and like
dancing the
being a
commandments.
good girl. Yeah.
Be a good girl. And we try so hard.
We
We
try so
actually, what
hard because
happens
we
is
feel
the
guilty.
ego wins big time because we beat ourselves up more and more and more, which means there's more guilt, there's more self-loathing, there's
Yeah.
more ego to, like, it's like a smorgasbord for the ego, because now we feel even more guilt. Oh, I can't believe I did stand up for myself. I can't believe I
Yes.
did do that. Bad, 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 bad. Shame, 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 shame. So
Right?
then,
You
it's
do.
like if we don't get to that part of us that says, this is about my self-loathing and my shame and my guilt, I have to work on that from the inside. And that is true forgiveness, to know that none of the other stuff out there means anything.
Yes. I'm glad you brought it back. I'm like, I'm glad you are thinking clearly because I'm a little tired and foggy today. My 2 a.m. teenager that coming home. Anyway, but no, I love that because it really brings it back because even me saying like, oh, to focus on yourself, I felt a little guilty saying that. Like and it's so funny. There's so many levels of the guilt, but it's like, yeah, if we recognize that's where this all started from, was the guilt, and everything is just a projection out of it. So then anytime like something happens and we're feeling like, oh, I shouldn't say that, or I shouldn't do that, or I shouldn't say, set this boundary or whatever. That's all outside of ourselves and it's all guilt. Or like, be a good girl, keep the peace, like, don't hurt anyone's feelings, which of course we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but like, what are we tolerating or enduring? At what cost to ourselves? But really, if we go back to like, well, this is just a projection of my own guilt anyway. Once
And you're
I
smoothing it over.
you're
And then
smoothing
you're
it
smoothing it over
over
at the level of the world. You're
of the
trying to
world.
maintain the world instead of really
Yep.
getting to the crux of the problem, which is the lack of self-love and self-respect.
Self-love. Yes. And that's where the ego can be tricky because it feels spiritual to be like, but we're all love, but we're all, so don't say anything, don't, like, but at what cost? And then you've still projected it out anyway because you're trying to forgive like in the projection of the world, which is not what the course is saying. And this book talks about, and summarizes it so well. Like, that's not what forgiveness is. It's like
Yeah.
returning, like forgiving yourself for the projection and like for taking, the ego's bait on guilt, like from the very beginning.
Yeah, it is. It for the true forgiveness is going way back to the beginning and seeing that I I tell myself I'm guilty, or I feel guilty, but the true forgiveness is nothing ever happened. I never did anything wrong.
Ah,
I'm
right.
still pure love right in this moment. I'm still with God. I never did anything wrong. There is no sin. There's nothing wrong. That is like true, true, true forgiveness right from the very core. And even when
Totally.
when you go into the world and you try to forgive someone for something they did, I feel can sometimes make you feel even more resentful. So then you're not only not forgiving, but you're
Mm.
creating more of like this attack or tension or
Because you're not honoring yourself and your own self-love. So you feel like it's something you have to do,
yes.
but it's off because it's not in the right spot. So it makes so much sense.
And you're
And it's,
validating this
yeah,
outside world of
yes.
hatred and yeah,
Which is
attack.
all just a projection. So like if we're seeing that show up with people or a situation, we're projecting out that guilt that we feel deep down. And it's
Yeah.
not until, like you said, we return back to the self-love, the forgiveness, that then you're like, that's not what you're seeing. Then you're solving it at the root because you're dealing with the inside of you instead of trying on the outside. But like we said, sometimes we need to sort of start there because we don't understand these concepts. And like, look at us, we're still having all these revelations and we've been studying this thing for so long. And it's like,
Yeah.
listening to another book and you're like, oh yeah, that's what it means, right? It's
Yeah.
oh, okay, like another revelation. Like, no, you don't have to endure stuff. You just pivot and have like a self-love, self-respect. Like that's the
Yeah. And
ultimate.
I was saying to you too, the interesting thing I've been going through lately, because I really have been really liking this idea of like knowing that all this, knowing I have guilt in me, whether I can see it or whether most
Mhm.
people deny that they have suffering, deny that they have guilt, deny they have fear, which is not helping them because then it gets projected out or projected to like a circumstance. So they have to relive it anyway. But anyway, one of the main things I've been really liking is going, okay, I have all this guilt and this fear that is from sort of the original separation or the original creation of my separate self. And from that, I want to acknowledge it and then also know that everything else is meaningless. And then in that moment where I'm like, everything's meaningless, like I'm going to work and I'm like, meaningless, meaningless, meaningless. Um, but there's this part of me that's strong that is like,
Mm.
you're an asshole. Like acting like things are meaningless is assholeship. And I'm like, whoa, this is really interesting. Like
Right?
I'm
There's
being
the
a
ego
jerk.
guilt, right? Of like, oh,
Yes. And
I can't see things that way because that means I'm a jerk and I'm going to be a jerk to people.
yes. And it shows you that connection between like, oh, be empathetic and be in this world, make everything so important. That makes you a good person. And you can see how it lines up like with the church. Like you're like, the more give from this place of like give to others, but it's coming from like this surface level
Mm.
um like so-called love. And then I'm like, oh wow, how funny, where if I can really let go of everything, it's for the good of the whole. It's for
Yeah.
the true deep down good of the everything of
Well,
myself
it
and
kind of
my
makes you more,
spirit and therefore the world. But
yeah.
it comes across in my mind as being like, okay, you're a jerk now. And it's like, oh, how weird.
Right? That's such a good catch. But it's like it kind of just makes you more neutral. Like really what
Yes.
it's saying is the world is meaningless. It's not
The,
saying people are, and so go be an asshole to people.
right.
Like it's like just don't take this world so seriously. And when you can
Yes.
let go, you can be more loving and see the truth, and you are a more loving version of yourself that gets extended out, which it talks a lot about. We project the guilt or we extend out the love, right? Which is the
Yeah.
ultimate. And you when you can see the world is like meaningless, then you can sort of return to this more neutral loving place, and then that's what gets extended out anyway. So it's like not to worry,
Yes.
you're good. Like you're not doesn't mean you're gonna go show up as an asshole.
That is a really well said how you just said that. It makes you just more neutral and you come out of the whole what Keith Kavanaugh calls the holy ego. And I think that is what I'm shifting out of, is that I've got this holy ego self that's like, I've got to be caring. I've got to go out of my way. I've got to blah, blah. Everything is so important and I have to be a good person. And it's really a holy ego. So you're right. Like coming back to this more neutral place is just being like, well, I'm not an ego. So therefore I'm not going to be that holy ego anymore. But then what I'm shifting into is just, I'm just going to be holy. And the
Yeah,
holiness comes from being open and love and neutral. Like you said, neutral being like in the moment, present,
yeah.
aware,
Yeah. Oh,
peaceful.
I love that. You just like totally summed up, I think, like what we both were experiencing, because it was just in different ways. For me, getting out of the holy ego as well. Oh, I need to make sure this is okay. I need to smooth this over. Oh, I can like, I'm capable. I can help this person. Like I don't want them to be offended. So it's like even though I've been practicing setting boundaries for years, this just felt like still trying to solve it in the world where it's like, no, like that's not what. forgiveness means, and it's an ego trap of like being in the holy ego. That's the best way to describe it. It's like that's not the lesson, and that's why these things keep showing up, because it's a projection of that guilt. And until I really go within and heal that and forgive myself for maybe not wanting to do that, or not, not wanting to endure this anymore, and that's okay. It's the most like self-loving place to be. But like the holy ego wants you to be out there like fixing things and smoothing
In
things
the
over
holiest way possible.
in
Use the
the
10 commandments.
holiest
Go
way.
and go follow all the
Mhm.
rules. And you're right. I love how you just say endured. So that really brought up something in my mind, which is whether it's like a conflict or whether it's in a relationship or whatever kind of suffering it is, that is
Yep.
exactly the point, is that I don't need to endure any of it. This is
Yeah.
not my fate. This is not my, as the
Yeah.
course says, my inheritance. Like if you're truly like connected and you are spirit, then no suffering of any kind is necessary. You can say, well, whether I can just drop the
Yeah.
connection or the neediness or the reality of these suffering experiences, because what you're saying about like the standing up for yourself and those relationships is just one flavor of suffering.
One flavor, and that's just was my flavor of the last
Flavor of
maybe
it.
couple
Yeah.
years.
Because it
And
could be
I'm
like
just,
physical
yeah,
ailments
it could,
or the
yes,
loss of a person, like a close one, any
yes,
suffering at all. When you're living on when you're living with that in the like when you feel that you are the body experiencing that
yeah,
suffering, it's going to be hella real. Like it's going to
yeah,
be real, 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 real. It's going to feel terrible. Like it's not to
yeah,
say it's not going to be awful and it's going to be suffering, but to be able to go one higher level and say, I am taken care of,
yeah,
and this has nothing to do with anything. That,
right.
like,
And
putting all those things into
yes,
play, and then you can go, yeah, look at that, that's my character, that's my body, she's suffering, there she is, and
there she goes again.
but you're safe where you are at.
Which is why we love the movie theater thing so much too, with that we talked about several episodes ago with Keith again, who like what a great visual to like see it unfolding on a movie theater, right?
Yeah.
But I was just gonna say, just to like give people, and not to get into like an example of this, but like what's been showing up for me over the last couple of years is this narcissistic type, right? And so then I was learning all about it and being able to spot it and standing up for myself, whatever way that was showing up. Um, but it's like I kept thinking, what's the lesson? Why is this showing up? Why am I attracting this, right? And like trying to figure it out and beating myself up. And I think it was showing up to get stronger and stronger and take a stand. But then now ultimately realizing you can just pivot and you don't have to endure or fix or smooth or whatever. But then also going, wait, this all is just a projection of my own guilt anyway, just to finally go, I am love. It's okay to choose myself and love, and that's the ultimate self-love and self-respect. So that's sort of the revelation I came to, but it's the same thing as what you're saying, like, and this doesn't mean anything. Like, remember, it doesn't mean anything, and really it's just who we are is love. And like we've just somehow t thought that this, separate self is real, and then that guilt is there, and that's what's we're projecting out. It's just like the players in our movie right now, until we just choose like love.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said.
So,
So now we
well,
can all go out there
dang.
and
Bit of a ramble, but it's it just, yeah, like how funny. Like it's, you discovered Keith and that was so helpful. And then circling back to this book, it's like there's so many great tools out there that just help us to remember. On that note, Tia, Amy's dog, is like,
He has a lot to say as
yeah,
well.
she's like, wrap it up, ladies, wrap it up. This has been too long. Well, welcome to our summer sessions. Some are good,
Yeah.
some are not, and some backgrounds are good, and some are not. Anyway, okay, guys, I hope that was helpful. And if you check out this book, it's a real good one. So,
Yes,
yeah.
enjoy.
Okay, until next
Till
time.
next time.
Please click and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode. And if you would like to learn more about readings and coaching with Chris and Amy, please visit chrisatley.com. Until next time.